Before we begin, make sure you're somewhere quiet. Turn off the lights. Put on your headphones. Because the stories you're about to hear aren't just scary. These are the kinds of experiences people don't talk about. If you enjoy true horror stories, unsettling encounters, and disturbing events that happen to real people, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's begin. I used to think the desert was empty. That was before I learned it watches you longer than you watch it. This happened in southern Arizona, late summer, when the heat doesn't fade after sunset, it just turns heavy, like the air itself is pressing down on your lungs. I was 24 at the time, working overnight deliveries between small towns most people never stop in unless their car breaks down. That night, my GPS rerouted me. It said it would save 30 minutes by taking a service road that cut straight through open desert. I remember hesitating because the road didn't even have a name, just a thin grey line stretching across nothing. But I was tired. And the map said it existed. The moment I turned onto that road, everything felt wrong. The pavement was cracked and uneven, like it hadn't been used in years, yet my headlights showed fresh tire marks, dozens of them, going the same direction I was. No signs. No reflectors. Just endless sand and low brush on both sides, stretching out farther than my lights could reach. 10 minutes in, my phone lost signal. That wasn't unusual out there. What was unusual was the radio. It cut to static, then briefly, just for a second, I heard voices. Not music. Not talk radio. Whispering. Low. Overlapping. Like several people speaking at once, all just below the volume of understanding. Then silence. I told myself it was interference. Desert does weird things to electronics. Everyone knows that. But my speedometer dropped to 0. The truck was still moving. I tapped the brakes. The engine responded normally. Everything felt normal, except the dashboard told me I wasn't moving at all. That's when I noticed something else. The road behind me was gone. Not dark, gone. My rearview mirror showed nothing but sand, smooth and untouched, like the road had never existed. No tire tracks. No pavement. Just empty desert stretching into blackness. I pulled over immediately. The headlights illuminated the ground ahead of me, a still cracked asphalt, but when I stepped out of the truck and looked behind it, my footprints ended at the door. Past that, nothing. No road. No tracks. Just wind-smoothed sand. The silence out there wasn't normal silence. It felt thick, like sound had been removed on purpose. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Careful. Approaching from somewhere beyond the reach of my headlights. I called out, asking if someone needed help. My voice sounded wrong, too small, like it was being absorbed by the night. The footsteps stopped. I waited. That's when something spoke back. Not loudly. Not aggressively. It said my name. I hadn't told anyone my name. I backed into the truck and slammed the door shut, heart pounding so hard it made my vision pulse. I locked the doors and turned the ignition. The engine didn't start. The dashboard lights flickered once, then went completely dark. Outside, something moved into the edge of the headlights. At first, I thought it was a person. Tall. Thin. Standing upright. But the way it stood wasn't right. Its arms hung too long. Its head tilted slightly, as if it was listening rather than looking. Its skin reflected the headlights like sand-coated glass. Then another stepped into view. Then another. They didn't walk. They appeared, one by one, at different distances along the road, all facing me, all perfectly still. I realized something horrifying in that moment. They weren't blocking the road. They were waiting for me to leave the truck. My radio crackled again. This time, the whispering was clear. Don't turn around. Stay where you are. You already drove too far. One of the figures moved closer. Not fast. Just closer. The headlights flickered, and for a split second I saw its face. It didn't have eyes. Just smooth skin where I should be, and a mouth stretched far too wide, pulled into something that might have been a smile if it understood what smiling was. I screamed and hit the horn. The sound didn't echo. It didn't travel. It died instantly, like it had been swallowed. That's when something knocked on the roof of the truck. Once. Hard. Dust fell from the ceiling liner. Then another knock, right above my head. I curled forward, gripping the steering wheel, whispering to myself that this wasn't happening. That I was hallucinating. Dehydrated. Exhausted. Then the passenger door handle moved. Slowly. Testing. The whispering returned, this time from inside the cab. You missed the turn back. I lost control and slammed the accelerator. The engine roared to life. The truck lurched forward, tires screaming against asphalt that suddenly existed again. The figures didn't chase me. They didn't need to. They watched. As I sped down the road, the GPS turned itself back on. It showed me driving across open desert. No road. No route. Just a moving arrow over empty land. I didn't stop until sunrise. When I finally reached the main highway, my phone exploded with notifications, missed calls, messages, voicemails. According to my delivery log, I had been offline for 9 hours. I thought it was over. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I checked my GPS history. That road didn't exist. No satellite record. No service road. No alternate route. But there was something else. A straight line across the desert. Labeled only as last known route. And sometimes, late at night, my phone vibrates. No notification. No call. Just a single message that appears for half a second before disappearing. Still driving. If you've ever driven through the desert at night, you know the feeling. That sense that you're being watched, not by something hiding close, but by something far away, patient, and completely aware of how small you are. This happened to me in western Nevada, near the edge of land so empty it barely feels like part of the world anymore. I was 28 and working as a freelance videographer at the time, driving solo to document abandoned towns for a small online series. I'd done it dozens of times before: ghost towns, dried-up mining camps, forgotten rest stops. Nothing had ever scared me. Until the town that answered back. I found it by accident. My original destination was a well-documented ghost town listed on old maps, but a dust storm rolled in fast, forcing me off the highway. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The road signs vanished behind blowing sand, and my GPS began lagging badly. Then my headlights caught something unexpected. A streetlight. Standing alone in the desert. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. Streetlights don't just exist by themselves. They belong to roads. Intersections. Towns. As I got closer, more lights appeared, lined up in a straight row, flickering faintly through the dust. I followed them. The storm faded as quickly as it had arrived, and suddenly I was driving down a paved road flanked by empty buildings. Old storefronts. A gas station. A motel with half its letters missing. The sign at the edge of town read, "Welcome to San Arroyo." Population. No number. I parked near the center of town and stepped out. The air felt wrong. Not just quiet, muted, like the sound had been turned down artificially. Even my footsteps sounded distant, hollow. The buildings looked abandoned, but not decayed. No graffiti. No broken glass. Doors closed. Windows intact. Like everyone had left all at once. I lifted my camera and started recording, narrating quietly. I commented on how preserved everything was, how strange it was that there was still power to the streetlights. That's when I heard the bell. A soft ding, the kind you hear when a shop door opens. It came from the gas station. I froze. Then it rang again. I approached slowly, heart racing, camera still rolling. The door was cracked open just enough to let warm yellow light spill onto the pavement. Inside, the place looked lived in. Shelves stocked. Coffee pot still warm. A radio playing low static behind the counter. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I stepped inside. The bell dinged behind me. I glanced at the counter and noticed something that made my stomach tighten. A guest book. Open. The top entry was dated today. Not just today, 10 minutes earlier. I scanned the names. They weren't names. They were descriptions. Blue jacket. Red truck. Camera. I backed away from the counter so fast I nearly dropped my camera. The radio crackled. A voice came through, clear, calm, and too close. "Welcome to San Arroyo." I spun around. There was no one behind me. The voice continued. "We don't get many visitors anymore." I bolted out of the gas station and ran back into the street. That's when I noticed something worse. Lights were turning on. One by one. Windows glowing softly in buildings that had been dark seconds earlier. Shadows moved behind the glass. Slow. Deliberate. Not frantic. Observing. I got back into my car and tried to start it. Nothing. The engine didn't even click. My phone buzzed. No service, but a notification appeared anyway. "Incoming call, San Arroyo." Against every instinct I had, I answered. The voice on the other end sounded old, dry, like it hadn't been used in years. "You found us," it said. I'm leaving," I replied. There was a pause. Then soft laughter. "No," the voice said. "You already arrived." The call ended. That's when the people stepped into the street. They emerged from the building silently, men, women, children, all dressed in clothes that looked decades out of place. Their skin was pale, stretched tight, their movements stiff, like they were remembering how walking worked. Every one of them stared directly at me. None of them blinked. One stepped forward. He raised a hand, not to wave, but to point. Behind me. I turned just as something slammed into the rear of my car. The trunk dented inward. Another impact followed, then another. They weren't hitting the car randomly. They were testing it. My headlights flickered on. And in their glow, I saw the road leading out of town. Or what was left of it. The pavement ended abruptly about 50 feet ahead. Beyond it was nothing but a massive, perfectly smooth pit in the earth, stretching farther than the light could reach. A hole where the desert should have been. The voice returned, this time coming from everywhere. "We answer those who call us." I realized then that the town hadn't been abandoned. It had been fed. Cars. Travelers. Lost people who wandered off route and never came back. San Arroyo didn't chase. It waited. The engine suddenly roared to life. I didn't question it. I slammed the gas and turned hard, crashing through a wooden fence at the edge of town. The car bounced violently as I tore across open desert, headlights cutting widely through sand and brush. Behind me, the lights of San Arroyo faded. When I finally hit the highway, my car stalled again, but this time, help came. A passing truck stopped. The driver swore I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I never told him what happened. Weeks later, I searched for San Arroyo. It didn't exist. No record. No maps. No abandoned town by that name. But while reviewing my footage, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. At the very end of the video, just before the car started. A reflection in the gas station window. Me. Standing inside. Still filming. People think the desert is empty. That's the first mistake. I learned that in southern Arizona, miles away from the nearest town, where the land stretches so far that your sense of scale breaks. I wasn't supposed to be there alone. A research partner was scheduled to join me, but he backed out the night before, citing a bad feeling. I laughed it off. At the time, I needed the money more than the company. I was contracted to document seismic anomalies. Minor tremors detected beneath a restricted stretch of desert land. Nothing classified, nothing military, or so they said. Just sensors, recordings, and a week of isolation. By the second night, I understood why no one stays out there longer than necessary. The silence wasn't natural. It wasn't the peaceful quiet you get camping. It felt pressurized, like the air itself was holding its breath. Even insects were scarce. No coyotes. No owls. Just wind brushing against rock like fingers testing bone. On the third night, my audio sensors picked up something they shouldn't have. Not movement. Not vibration. Voices. Low-frequency murmurs barely registering as sound. When slowed down and cleaned, they formed patterns, almost like speech, but not in any language I recognized. Still, my brain tried to interpret it. That was the second mistake. I radioed the base station to report the anomaly. There was a long pause before they responded. "Pack up," the voice said. "You're done early." I asked why. Another pause. "Because," the operator said carefully, "the desert doesn't like to be recorded." I thought it was a joke. That night, I saw the lights. Not in the sky. On the ground. Far away at first, tiny points blinking in uneven patterns, scattered across the horizon. I assumed they were vehicles or distant settlements until I noticed something off. They were getting closer. Not moving like cars. They appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared nearer, as if distance didn't apply to them correctly. I grabbed my binoculars. That's when my hand started shaking. The lights weren't attached to anything. They hovered just above the sand, drifting without sound. Around them, the ground looked distorted, warped downward slightly, like the desert itself was sagging under their presence. One by one, they went out. All except one. That last light stopped directly outside my camp perimeter. 10 feet away. I could feel it, even through the tent fabric, on a pressure behind my eyes, like someone was pressing a thumb into my skull. I wanted to scream but couldn't bring myself to make noise. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Too heavy. They circled the tent once. Twice. Each step sank deep into the sand, deeper than any human footprint should. The thing outside stopped near the entrance. And it spoke. Not aloud. Inside my head. "You noticed us." I didn't respond. I couldn't. That was rude, it continued, sounding almost disappointed. "We were hoping you wouldn't." The tent zipper began to move. Not pulled. Unzipping itself. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it toward the opening. The light hit something tall, impossibly thin, standing inches away. Its surface wasn't flesh, more like packed sand held together by shadow. No face. No eyes. But it was looking at me. "People used to pass through without seeing," it said. "Now you bring machines. You listen. You watch." The ground beneath it shifted, forming slow ripples, like the desert was breathing. "We don't like being remembered." I blacked out. When I woke up, it was morning. My camp was gone. No tent. No equipment. No footprints. Just me lying directly on the sand, sun already burning my skin. My truck was parked nearby, but the doors were open, the battery dead. I noticed something carved into the ground around me. A massive circle. miles wide, judging by the curvature disappearing into the horizon. Symbols etched deep into the earth, too precise to be erosion, too large to be human-made. At the center of the circle was me. I found a road by walking for hours, eventually flagged down a border patrol vehicle. They asked why I was in a restricted zone and why my research permit had been revoked 2 days earlier. 2 days earlier. I told them what happened. They didn't laugh. They exchanged looks. One of them asked me a question that still haunts me. Did it speak to you before or after you noticed it? I asked what he meant. He shook his head. Never mind, he said. You won't go back. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. Since then, whenever I'm alone at night, I hear the wind slow down. The silence thickens. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear that same voice inside my head. Soft. Patient. You're still listening. I stopped using recording devices. I stopped driving through deserts. But it doesn't matter. Because once the desert knows you can see it, it doesn't forget. And one day soon, it will make sure you're remembered too.